Have you ever wondered what it's like to live abroad and what lessons immigrants learn throughout their journey? If so, then you're in the right video. This video is going to be very personal, where I will talk to you about my journey of an immigrant. I've been living abroad for 16 years, which is almost half of my life. And I've been living in several countries in Europe and in Asia. My name is Karolina and I'm an English teacher. I've been teaching English in several countries and I'm also a founder of an online language school. So if you're interested in either learning more about living abroad or in learning languages, you should subscribe to this channel. In this video, I'll share with you 6 lessons that I've learned from living abroad. Lesson number 1, and probably the biggest lesson that I've learned, is that there are stereotypes and you will be stereotyped no matter what. Different countries have different stereotypes, or different countries perceive your country differently. Therefore, wherever you go, you will receive a sticker just because you come from a certain country. I am from Poland. I grew up in Polish countryside at the very north of Poland. And in 2007, I moved to England. 2007 was more or less still the time of this big immigration wave of Poles moving to England. So, of course, I received that sticker of yet another Polish woman, most likely not speaking English and most likely being a cleaner, coming over to our country to take our jobs and to lower our national minimum and whatever you can imagine. Poles back then, I don't know what it's like now, but Poles back then were not, from my experience, were not perceived as high-class citizens. So I felt like I was degraded in a way. Being in that country, even though I moved there to study. And yes, I was doing labor job. I was working in restaurants, waiting tables, working at bars, also at elderly houses and stuff like this. There were simple student jobs that I was doing. So, you know, people interpreted it the way they wanted. So first I was in England. I finished my studies. And then from England, I moved to China. And in China, it was a whole different world. I was no longer the second-class citizen. Instead, I was the higher class person who comes from Europe. So this person must be educated. This person must be rich. This person is more eloquent than the Chinese. I don't know. But I remember that when I was living in China, everybody always wanted to take a photo of me because I was blonde, which was also an interesting thing for them. I was exotic, you know, exotic from far away. It doesn't matter that I was from Wolan, which is Poland. Most of them didn't know where that was, but as long as I mentioned it's in Europe, I was, you know, the superstar, almost like a celebrity. Just, can we take a photo? Can we take a photo? Can we take a photo? Work-wise, it was also quite different. We were treated way better. We, as teachers of English, we were treated way better than the Chinese workers. So the way we were working was that we were the teachers, but because most of us didn't speak Chinese, we had teaching assistants, and those were Chinese people who spoke English. So they, in fact, were the ones who were more educated than us, and they were the more eloquent. I mean, their English was not perfect, but it was way better than our Chinese. But still, we were paid better, we had more holidays, and we could use them, and many teachers did use them to do the jobs that were actually our responsibility. But I could see multiple times that teachers were abusing the cultural difference. So I found that the Chinese really felt supportive, and they had the need to support each other. It was obvious for them that if somebody has a problem or a difficulty or is not capable of doing something, the other person would help them. So, you know, many teachers abused that and asked their assistants to print out worksheets, to do extra jobs that normally are a responsibility of a teacher, but because Some of us were heartless. Some of us used it, and I didn't like it. So yes, coming from England, where I was that lower class, suddenly I was that higher class, even though I was the vulnerable one in that situation, being in a new country, new culture, I couldn't even read Chinese. Still, I had more rights and I was treated better. From China, I moved to Nepal, and in Nepal, I was considered as a rich tourist, even though I remember having finished my contract in China, I had 1,000 American dollars hidden in my side pocket. 1,000 American dollars is nothing, especially if you have no job and you have no idea what you're going to do with your life. So I arrived at the airport in Nepal, and I remember that I was approached multiple times by people trying to sell me things, sell me a hiking trip on Mount Everest and hotels and stuff like this, even though most of it I couldn't simply afford. And from there, I moved to Austria, where I continue to live. In Austria, I don't feel like there's a certain stereotype. Polish people are not a majority here, although I do from time to time hear the joke about Polish people stealing cars. So I think this one will ghost me for the rest of my life. Yeah, I spent quite a long time in India, as I was also a yoga teacher. And I knew someone whose uncle had a school. It was a private school, a primary school. And I went there to visit. And I was somebody took a random photo of me during that event, and I was put on a banner right at the entrance to that school, and that banner still remains there till today. And I am the face of that school, but just because I look the way I look, it's enough to sort of rank up the prestigiousness of that school. All right, so what I'm trying to say is that I am still me. I am still Karolina, and I still come from Poland. And yes, I've been studying abroad, and yes, I speak English, and I teach it, and I've been teaching it for many years. And yes, I've experienced a lot of things and learned a lot of things throughout my life, but I'm still the same girl, yet I'm perceived differently in different countries. Because we are human beings, and as human beings, we are social species, we like to be accepted and welcomed. So when you're discriminated against, or when you're perceived as that lower class, it does hurt. It's a harsh judgment, and it always hurts no matter what. However, if you have brains and if you're able to flip it around, next time you see someone from whichever country, you will take a step back and you will think twice before you judge that person. You might think that just because someone comes from Syria or someone comes from Colombia or Mexico, you might think that you know them, but the truth is you don't know their story. You don't know who they are, what they've done, where they've lived, what they've experienced. So you don't judge right away. And this is a beautiful lesson from immigration that I gained. Lesson number 2 is acceptance. And that means once you've lived in many countries, which is my case, you understand that there are many ways of living life and many ways of perceiving life, raising children, arranging marriages, many religions, many customs, many lifestyles. It taught me that life isn't about enforcing your idea or your lifestyle onto others. Instead, it's understanding that there are differences between us and you can learn from them. You don't have to take all of them as yours. Instead, you can simply open your mind and understand more about life. I will give you an example. There are certain communities in India that eat with their hands. Now, how many times have you burned your mouth just because you've eaten something or you tried eating something that was too hot? Right? When you put food on your fork, you don't feel the temperature of the food. So you try to put it in your mouth until you realize that it's super hot and you burn yourself. It happened to me multiple times. Now, it never happens within these communities in India because they have hands and a hand feels whether something's hot or not. It makes sense. It doesn't mean that I have to eat with my hands, but at least I understand that that there are different ways of doing things. And I live my life and I let others live too. You know, it's just being able to bridge the differences and accept the differences. Lesson number 3 is a harsh one. Nobody's waiting for you. Nobody is waiting for you. When you start living abroad as an immigrant on your own, and that's an important fact. When I first moved to whichever country, actually, whether it was England, China, Nepal, or Austria, I always moved there alone, and I had nobody who would arrange anything for me. So that means I had to find housing, I had to arrange a job for myself, I had to learn the system of that country, do my yearly income payments, and so on. That means that you arrive at the airport and nobody's picking you up. That means that when you first move to a country, you know nobody, and you have to make these relationships. You start from zero. That is a great opportunity because you have the chance to choose your life and build your life the way you want it. So you pick friends that you want to have instead of those who are friends of your family and you've known each other for a lifetime, so you just might as well remain together. Of course, there are cons. You have to rethink everything. It's more difficult. You have to rethink every single friendship. You have to rethink every single idea that you agree to. However, it creates the basis of your life. So you kind of uproot yourself from the cultural upbringing and you create your own lifestyle. Also, over time, you start to realize that that work pays back. So you start with zero, you have no contacts, but at some point you do get a job and you do go there and you do work there. And over time, you start to notice that you are being valued for your hard work, that those relationships are being built over time, and that you can contribute greatly to a country that is not yours. What I'm trying to say is that as an immigrant, you take 100% responsibility over your life, period. Lesson number 4 is highly connected to lesson number 3, and that is appreciation. I remember when I first moved to England, and it was the same with Austria. I came with just one luggage of 20 kilograms. I remember that my mom rolled a duvet for me, wrapped it into a band, and somehow tried to fit it into my luggage so that I would have something to cover myself with at night. When you arrive with just one luggage, you have nothing. You have to build your life from very few items that you have in your luggage. So you start to appreciate absolutely everything, whether it's some little help from somebody or some advice from somebody or getting a job in a country whose language you don't speak, and even paying bills. Yes, I know that for most of us it hurts to pay a bill, but at the end of the day, when you're an immigrant, you notice that nothing can be taken for granted. Getting a job cannot be taken for granted. So having that money to pay your bills is something that you can be really, truly grateful for. So appreciation for every little thing is something that I've learned definitely. And I know that till today, when I go home and somebody offers to pick me up or somebody offers to drive me somewhere, for me, it's like, wow, would you do that for me? Thanks. I have friends, of course, and we do help each other out. But yeah, I guess what I'm trying to say is that you don't take things for granted, and every little help is a great support for you, and you really, really, from the bottom of your heart, appreciate it. Lesson number 5 is you never stop learning, especially in my case, because I've lived in several countries and on 2 continents. I continue learning. I know that there's never a moment when I understand everything. There's always certain behavior in a certain country where I live that I don't understand. There's languages that I don't understand. There's system that I don't understand. For example, in Austria, I find this system way more complex than, for example, it was in England or in Nepal. I mean, Nepal was super easy. Nothing is documented there. But, then you come to Austria and suddenly everything is documented. And there's so many rules. You can't even throw away your garbage after 10 o'clock. I mean, it depends on communities, but, there are rules for everything. So you remain flexible. And flexibility is an amazing ability to have, especially nowadays when technology develops greatly and super fast. We have to be flexible. The strong ones are not the ones who have built something, but those who stay flexible in times of great changes. I feel like immigration has developed that ability in me. It's encoded in me that I don't know the eternal truth. Like there's always something to learn. And being open to that new insight and new understanding and new opinions and new technology and the new keeps me flexible, simply. And the lesson number 6 is a funny one, yet I find it extremely helpful. I've lived in countries where I couldn't communicate properly, like China, for example. It's a funny thing, actually. When you try to communicate and you don't understand and don't speak the language, you say something in English, right? And then the Chinese would reply in Chinese. I wouldn't understand anything, so I would repeat or, just look like a dumb person, like, whoa, what have you just said? And then they would say the same thing in Chinese, but louder, just as if I had hearing problems, which is not the case, but it just kind of works like this. When people don't understand you, you say the same thing louder. I still wouldn't understand. So what they would do, they would write it down for me. But I cannot read Chinese. So it was like, okay, thanks. I mean, I will keep it as a souvenir, although I have no idea what it says. So lesson number 6 is that you become a master of understanding body language. You just master it. Even though you don't understand a word of what they're saying, reading their body language, reading their facial expressions, you know what they're saying, even though you don't understand a word of what they're saying to you. Also in countries, for example, when I first moved to Austria, I couldn't speak any German whatsoever. And I remember I was walking once down the street and there was a sale and it said, alles muss raus. Like everything has to sell out. And I didn't speak any German whatsoever. And I thought that alles, everything, alles was a name. And muss raus, I thought, oh, okay, that probably is some political propaganda. Yes, it's silly, but if you don't speak the language, you don't speak the language. Over time, of course, I learned German, but on the way, I could speak very little. And I realized that I've mastered the ability to not only read body language, but to scan exactly the key words that I knew in the whole speech that was given to me. So when somebody was talking to me, I would know exactly what they're trying to tell me, even though I understand about 20% of what they're saying. It's a masterpiece. It's an art. Of course, over time, I've learned German and now I don't have that problem. But I just think that it's real art to be able to know what people say to you, even though you don't understand anything of what they're saying. So that's it. Those are my 6 lessons that I've learned from 16 years of living abroad as an immigrant. If you'd like to learn foreign languages for real so that you can understand everything people say to you, I invite you to join my language school. We teach online, we teach English, German, and Spanish. However, I also invite you to subscribe to this channel so that you can hear more of my personal stories, but also so that you can receive some valuable content on learning foreign languages. I hope to see you in the next video.